Mexico, where the sun shines daily on a mountain top. I took a trip on a sailing ship. When I reached Jamaica, I made a stop. But I'm sad to say I'm on my way. Won't be back for many a days. My head is down, my head is turning around. I had to leave a little girl in Kingston town. If you die, there's nothing to fear. Why? Because you either go to heaven or to hell. If you go to heaven, there's nothing to worry about. You'll be okay. Even if you go to hell, there's nothing to worry about. You'll find so many of your friends. So spend a long time just greeting them. How are you? Before your time for the fire comes. So therefore, don't fear. You have nothing to fear as Kenyans. We will succeed in the long run.
Raila Odinga's life was a dramatic, decades-long journey through Kenyan politics, marked by struggle, detention, and a persistent quest for democratic reform, culminating in his role as Prime Minister. Here is a look at his life and rise to power. Early life and education, 1945, 1970s. Raila Odinga was born on January 7, 1945, in Masino, Kisumu district. He was born into one of Kenya's most prominent political families. His father, Jaramogi Oginga Odinga, was a key figure in the independence movement and later served as Kenya's first vice president under Jomo Kenyatta. This upbringing instantly immersed him in the country's political currents. After his early schooling, he traveled to East Germany on a scholarship, where he pursued a technical education. He earned a Master of Science degree in mechanical engineering from the Technical University of Magdeburg in 1970. Upon returning to Kenya, he worked as a lecturer.
We think that we will arrive at an acceptable solution.
University of Nairobi before entering the civil service, becoming the deputy director of the Kenya Bureau of Standards, KEBS, by 1978. The era of detention and pro-democracy struggle, 1980s, 1991. The early 1980s marked a turning point, plunging Raila into a life of political peril. Detention following the attempted coup against President Daniel Arap Moi in 1982, Odinga was arrested and accused of involvement. He was detained without trial for 6 years, a common practice of the one-party state at the time. This period of his life, which included the death of his mother without being informed for months, solidified his image as a persecuted pro-democracy crusader. Amnesty International's prisoner of conscience, he was detained 2 more times in the late 1980s and early 1990s for his continued agitation for a multi-party system and democratic reforms. His cause was taken up internationally, with organizations like Amnesty International adopting him as a prisoner of conscience.
NASA is a movement for the liberation of the people of Kenya.
Exile. In 1991, fearing assassination amid the relentless government crackdown, he fled the country for a brief political asylum in Norway. The start of the electoral journey, 1992 to 2007. Upon returning to a newly multi-party Kenya in 1992, Raila formally launched his electoral career. Entering parliament, he was successfully elected as the Member of Parliament for Langata constituency in 1992, the seat he would hold for over 2 decades. The political wheeler-dealer over the next decade, he became known for his deft political maneuvering. He left his father's party, Ford Kenya, to take over the National Development Party, NDP, and contested the 1997 presidential election, finishing 3rd. In a major political surprise, he later merged the NDP with the ruling party, KANU, and served in President Mwa's cabinet as Minister of Energy from 2001 to 2002. In 2002, he broke away from KANU after Mwa endorsed Uhuru Kenyatta as his successor. Odinga then led a formidable opposition coalition, the National Rainbow Coalition, NARC, which swept Mwai Kibaki into power and ended KANU's nearly four-decade rule. He was rewarded with the post of Minister of Roads, Public Works and Housing. Formation of ODM. He eventually fell out with Kibaki's government over the promised sharing of power and constitutional reform. Following a victory in a 2005 constitutional referendum, his side formed the Orange Democratic Movement, ODM, signifying a major political split. The apex of power, Prime Minister, 2008 to 2013. Raila's political journey climaxed after the highly contentious 2007 presidential election. The 2007 election crisis. Running as the ODM candidate, he challenged the incumbent, Mwai Kibaki. The declared results were disputed, leading to widespread ethnic and political violence that brought the country to the brink of civil war, costing over 1,100 lives. The National Accord. The crisis was resolved through international mediation led by former UN Secretary-General Kofi Annan. A power-sharing agreement, the National Accord and Reconciliation Act, was signed. Prime Minister. The accord led to the creation of the position of Prime Minister, a post Raila Odinga held from April 2008 to April 2013, effectively making him the co-principal of the Grand Coalition government alongside President Kibaki. This period was one of significant policy implementation and the ultimate drafting and promulgation of Kenya's new, progressive 2010 constitution. Raila Odinga's ascent to the Prime Minister's office was not a straightforward electoral victory, but the hard-won result of decades of struggle, political calculation, and mass mobilization, making him one of the most consequential and defining figures in Kenyan post-independence history.
Itakuwa ni kitendo cha usalata mkubwa kwetu kama viongozi kwenda Kasarani kule tukiwa kama tunajua matokeo ya Kasarani tayari yanajulikana. Captain na naibu wake walikuwa wamepata majeraha kwenye michezo. Wameingia kwenye kiwanja kama tayari tumeshafunga bao 2 kwa yai.
Raila Amolo Odinga's life was a grand and relentless saga, inextricably linked with the story of modern Kenya itself. His contribution was not just to politics, but to the very foundation of the nation's democratic structure and its elusive quest for unity. His most enduring legacy is the fight for democracy and constitutional reform. From his detentions without trial in the 1980s under President Mwa's regime, he became the ultimate symbol of resistance to single-party rule. He endured years of imprisonment and exile, sacrifices that were instrumental in
Sasa mtashika adabu, sio? Na sisi tuko tayari kama wanachunga kwenda nao mpaka kule katika haya. Vijana hoye! Vijana hoye! Asanteni.
The push for a multi-party system and the dawn of what Kenyans called the Second Liberation. Crucially, he became the architect of devolution and a champion of the 2010 Constitution. Recognizing that centralization of power fueled ethnic grievances and inequitable resource distribution, he tirelessly advocated for the new charter, which introduced the county-based system of devolution. This reform was perhaps his greatest structural gift to Kenya, a mechanism designed to ensure that development reached all corners of the country and to empower local governance, addressing the historical injustices that had long fractured the nation. On the front of national unity, Odinga's journey was marked by his extraordinary capacity for political reconciliation, often after intense and divisive electoral battles. The defining moment came in 2008, following the devastating post-election violence. By agreeing to a power-sharing arrangement that made him the country's first prime minister under President Mwai Kibaki, he chose national stability over personal power, successfully pulling the country back from the brink of civil conflict. Later, in 2018, his famous handshake with President Uhuru Kenyatta after another disputed election was a seismic act of statesmanship. It was a clear public signal that political rivals could and must Bury the hatchet for the greater good of a unified nation, fostering an era of relative peace and collaboration. Conclusion: a legacy immortalized.
If you die, there's nothing to fear. Why? Because you either go to heaven or to hell. If you go to heaven, there's nothing to worry about. You'll be okay. Even if you go to hell, there's nothing to worry about. You'll find so many of your friends. So for a long time just greeting them, how are you? Before your time for the fire comes. So therefore, don't fear. You have nothing to fear as Kenyans. We will succeed in the long run.
Raila Odinga's long political journey concluded on Wednesday, October 15th, 2025, at the age of 80, in India, where he was receiving treatment. He died after suffering a cardiac arrest, a sudden end to a life lived in the public eye. He will be remembered as Baba, Father, by his millions of devoted followers, not just as a politician who ran for president 5 times, but as a revolutionary and a statesman. His legacy is etched in the enduring principles of Kenya's constitution, in the spirit of reconciliation that followed his historic truces, and in the memory of a charismatic figure who fought relentlessly for a more just and equitable Kenya. His death leaves an immense void, but the ideals he championed, for justice, democratic reform, and a united Kenya, will continue to inspire the country's political discourse for generations to come.